My name is Lindsey. I'm 32 years old. And this is the story of how the man I once trusted more than anyone else in the world tried to humiliate me in front of my entire family, only to discover I had been 10 steps ahead of him the entire time. It was just before Christmas when Logan, my husband of almost 8 years, decided he'd ruin what little warmth I still had left in my heart. But if you asked anyone who knew us back then, they'd swear we were the perfect couple. Picture perfect, even. Logan was 5 years older than me, charming to a fault, a born salesman with a voice that could turn no into yes in 3 syllables or less. He worked as the sales director at a booming tech firm in Austin, Texas. At galas, fundraisers, or even just office mixers, he was the one everyone wanted to stand next to. And me? I was always one step behind him, one beat too slow, the quiet one. The wife who smiled and nodded, who wore whatever made him look better. I used to think that was love, sacrifice, compromise, becoming what someone else needed. But I was wrong. You see, Logan didn't need a partner. He needed an audience. And I had front row tickets to a performance I never wanted to see. The cracks had been there for years. The first time I realized something was wrong, we were at a 4th of July barbecue with some of his colleagues. I had worn a red dress, my favorite. Logan had once told me it made me look like a movie star. But when I stepped outside that day, his smile dropped the second he saw me. So bright red, huh? Trying to get attention? Bit much, don't you think, he muttered, just loud enough for the others to hear. I laughed nervously, pretending I was in on the joke. Everyone else did too. But something inside me curled into itself. After that, I never wore that dress again. It wasn't just that one moment. It was the steady, slow erosion of who I was. Little comments here and there. Lindsey, maybe don't speak up too much in front of my boss, you know how you get when you're nervous. Or you sure you need that second cookie? Just thinking of your cholesterol, babe. Always with a smile. Always wrapped in sugar. I stopped seeing my friends. I told my sister I was just busy. I began tiptoeing around the house like a stranger in my own home, reading Logan's moods like weather patterns, clear skies, thunderstorm warnings, unpredictable tempests. Still, I told myself I was lucky. He never raised his voice. Never hit me. Never called me cruel names. No. Logan weaponized charm. He didn't have to break things, he just broke me, piece by quiet piece. Then one evening, I saw a message pop up on his phone. It was from someone named Ava T, and it read, "Lunch today was too much fun. You always know how to make a girl laugh." Face blowing a kiss. He was in the shower, steam fogging the mirror. I stood frozen in the kitchen, the message glowing like a tiny betrayal I wasn't allowed to name. When I showed him, he chuckled. Actually chuckled. "Come on, Linz. Don't be dramatic. She's just a colleague. You know you're the one I love, right?" That was the first night I didn't cry. I just nodded, turned away, and quietly made a decision. I stopped asking questions. I started paying attention. By the time the holidays rolled around, I was no longer the woman Logan thought he had in his pocket. I had become something else, something stronger, colder, and sharper. And when he laughed with his best friend Troy about serving me divorce papers at Christmas, betting I'd sob and beg him to stay, I knew it was time. I was going to let him play his little game. But I had a gift of my own. One he wouldn't see coming. That night, after I overheard Logan and Troy in the study joking about how I'd crumble, I didn't sleep. I just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling every second pass like it was chiseling something permanent into me. Not sadness. Not anger. Something far colder, clarity. I had been shrinking for years to make Logan feel bigger. Giving up space, time, dreams, dignity. But that night, I promised myself I wouldn't shrink anymore. Not for him. Not for anyone. The next morning, I made his coffee the way he liked, 2 sugars, dash of oat milk, cinnamon on top. I greeted him in the kitchen with a kiss on the cheek. He barely noticed. Just mumbled something about having a strategy call later that would probably turn into drinks with the team. "Don't wait up," he said. I smiled. Of course not. When the door closed, I pulled out the old shoebox from under the bed where I kept all the things I'd been collecting, printed text messages, screenshots of social media likes on suggestive posts, restaurant receipts with 2 entrees and only 1 person listed on the company expense. I even had a photo Monica had helped me discreetly take when I followed him to a hotel 2 months ago and saw him check in with the same blonde woman from the gala. Her hands were all over him. I didn't cry then, either. Instead, I slipped the photo into the folder along with everything else. My lawyer, Monica, was a genius at making every detail airtight. She knew exactly how to use the evidence to build not just a divorce case, but a destruction strategy. We didn't want vengeance. We wanted consequence. The prenuptial agreement Logan had signed in his drunken arrogance was the crown jewel. He'd scribbled his name so confidently, thinking it was a joke. That signature, paired with the infidelity evidence, gave me a financial and legal edge so sharp it could cut through steel. And it would cut him clean out of my life. But I wasn't ready yet. I needed to let him think he was still in control, still winning. So I played the perfect wife. I decorated our house for Christmas. Hung wreaths, lit candles, baked the sugar cookies he liked. I even bought matching sweaters with Mr. and Mrs. printed in gold cursive, laid them neatly on our bed. Logan laughed when he saw them. "Man, you're corny. But I love you for it," he said. I nodded, kissed him, and tucked the pain away. Every fake smile was another stitch in the mask I wore. I had to keep it on until the final act. Logan grew bolder by the day. He stayed out late more often, came home smelling like cologne that wasn't his. Sometimes he didn't even make excuses anymore. Just walked in, threw his jacket over the couch, and grabbed a beer like I didn't exist. I kept making dinner. I kept turning down the bed. I kept smiling. He thought I was broken. That I had accepted my place. But the truth was, I was just sharpening my sword behind his back. The week before Christmas, Logan made a comment during brunch that almost shattered my composure. "You know," he said, swirling his mimosa, "if we ever split, you'd probably come crawling back within a month. You wouldn't last on your own." I set my fork down slowly and met his eyes. "Maybe. But let's not test it, okay?" He smirked, satisfied. "Exactly." I excused myself and went to the bathroom. My hands were shaking again. But not from fear this time. It was rage. I didn't hate Logan for cheating. I didn't even hate him for mocking me. I hated him for thinking I was weak. For building a world where I had to constantly prove my worth just to be allowed peace. For believing I would just take it forever. But his mistake wasn't just cruelty. It was underestimating me. And that would cost him everything. Christmas Eve came. The house was glowing. I baked ham, poured wine, set the table with linen napkins and my grandmother's silverware. Logan's family arrived first. His mother gave me a tired hug, his brother barely looked up from his phone. Then came my side, my sister, my aunt, 2 of my cousins. Monica, too, under the guise of old college friend. Everyone laughed, toasted, exchanged stories by the fire. I floated between them, soft-voiced, gracious, invisible. Just the way Logan liked it. After dinner, he stood and clinked his glass with a spoon. "Everyone, may I have your attention," he said, flashing that politician smile of his. I sat down slowly. He reached into his jacket. My breath slowed. "This Christmas," he began, "I want to give Lindsey something meaningful. Something life-changing." I glanced at Monica, who gave the subtlest nod. Logan pulled out a white envelope, the divorce papers inside. My heart thudded once, quiet and deep like the knock of destiny at your door. He placed the envelope in front of me with a flourish. "Merry Christmas, babe." The room was silent. My aunt's fork clinked against her plate. My sister's eyes went wide. But I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I just smiled sweetly and reached into my purse. I pulled out a pen. And signed. The entire table stared at me like I'd just lit the house on fire. Then, slowly, I took out a small box, silver wrapping, blue bow, and slid it across the table to him. "What's this?" Logan said, frowning. "A gift," I said softly. "Since we're doing surprises." He opened it. Saw the leather folder. Read the first page. And his face went white. Inside that folder were copies of the prenup, the infidelity evidence, and the notarized addendums. Every document necessary to ensure that the next chapter of my life would begin without him, and with nearly everything he thought was his. I leaned in close and whispered, "Check the appendix. You'll want to see the clause about breach of fidelity." His mouth opened, but no sound came. Then I pulled out one final envelope. And slid it toward him. Inside was an ultrasound photo. 8 weeks. A heartbeat he'd never be close enough to hear. "Merry Christmas, Logan," I said. Logan didn't say a word. Not when I stood up. Not when I quietly excused myself from the table, placing my cloth napkin neatly on the chair. Not when my sister followed me into the kitchen, eyes wide with questions she didn't yet know how to ask. I could feel the silence rippling behind me like a sonic wave, crashing through everything Logan thought he controlled. For once, he was speechless. Powerless. Exposed. When I glanced back, he was still staring down at the ultrasound picture, as if it were some kind of mirage. His hands trembled. His mother looked horrified. Troy, his best friend, had gone pale and kept gulping down his wine like it might make him disappear. Monica stayed seated, calm as ever, her fingers laced on the table, watching everything unfold like the legal hawk she was. I didn't need to say anything more. Because the room already knew. Logan had planned this moment for months. He wanted to humiliate me on the holiest night of the year. To turn my heartbreak into a joke told over brandy and cigars for years to come. He thought I would sob, beg, collapse into a sobbing mess he could smugly walk away from. But what he didn't know was, I'd already left him long ago. I just hadn't moved out yet. That night, after everyone left in stunned silence, some with apologies, some too embarrassed to look me in the eye, I went upstairs and packed a small bag. Logan didn't stop me. He stood in the foyer, still in that stupid tailored Christmas suit, gripping the folder like it might set him on fire. "Lindsey," he finally said, voice hoarse, What was that?" I turned, met his eyes, and spoke gently. "That was me giving you exactly what you asked for." He took a step forward, but I held up my hand. "You don't get to speak now. You had years to speak to me. To see me. I was drunk when I signed that," he shouted suddenly. "You tricked me." "No," I replied calmly. "I gave you a chance to be honest. You chose the lie. The pen was just a tool. The betrayal was yours." And then I walked out. I drove to Monica's guest house that night, my bag on the seat beside me, my hand steady on the wheel. The city was quiet, the streets wet from an earlier rain, Christmas lights blinking gently in windows as I passed. But I didn't feel festive. I felt free. When I woke up the next morning, Christmas Day, the sun had just started rising, casting a soft gold glow over the city skyline. I was curled on Monica's couch, a throw blanket wrapped around my legs, the faint scent of cinnamon and coffee wafting from the kitchen. She sat beside me with 2 mugs. Handed me one. "You okay?" she asked. I looked at her. Really looked. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe without asking permission. "Yeah," I said. "I think I finally am." The following weeks moved fast. Monica wasted no time. She filed the necessary motions, invoked the clauses in the prenup, submitted the evidence. She made sure Logan's assets were itemized, frozen, and negotiated. It was brutal. But it was fair. Logan, of course, tried to fight it. His lawyer sent long-winded rebuttals, appeals, good faith offers that would have left me with barely a fraction of what I was owed. Monica didn't flinch once. And neither did I. In the courtroom, Logan sat 2 rows ahead of me, eyes sunken, hair less polished than usual. He looked at me once, as if hoping I might extend him some kind of mercy. But I had none left to give. Because mercy without remorse is just a reset button for the guilty. In less than a month, the court sided with us. I was awarded the house, a significant portion of our joint investments, and sole custody of our unborn child. The judge even granted a restraining order preventing Logan from contacting me directly for 90 days, because of the manipulation, the emotional abuse, and the calculated betrayal. Logan didn't even flinch when the verdict was read. He just sat there. Like he'd finally realized he lost something he could never buy back. Pride. Dignity. Me. The house I returned to wasn't the same one I had left that Christmas Eve. Not in spirit. The walls were quieter, yes, but they were also lighter, free of that heavy weight Logan used to leave behind with every cruel joke, every belittling glance. I called a locksmith that same day. When the new locks clicked into place, I stood on the threshold for a long time, holding the fresh set of keys in my hand. This was my home now. Not ours. Mine. The changes started small. I painted the kitchen, soft teal instead of gray. Got rid of Logan's ridiculous collection of status symbol abstract art and hung up framed photos from my road trips instead. I filled the living room with plants. He used to say they were a waste of time. I found them calming. Nurturing. Alive. Just like me. I began documenting everything, pregnancy milestones, thoughts, fears, even little joys. I wanted my child to someday know this story. To understand where they came from, and why their mother refused to be someone's shadow. And then, one morning, I felt the first kick. It was the smallest flutter, barely a tap. But to me, it felt like thunder. It was life, reminding me that I wasn't alone anymore. That this chapter, this new beginning, had purpose beyond my own healing. By January's end, I was waking up in a different world, one where Logan's voice didn't echo through the halls, where I could walk barefoot across the kitchen tiles and not feel like I was walking on glass. My mornings started with soft music, herbal tea, and a quiet peace I had forgotten existed. Rachel, my cousin, moved in that February. She had always been the strong one in the family, the one who wore red lipstick to funerals and made people laugh during hospital visits. When she arrived, she brought more than just a suitcase and a duffel bag full of baby onesies. She brought back the sound of joy. She walked in, dropped her things, and pulled me into the biggest hug. "Don't worry, Lindsey. You're not doing this alone," she whispered. "Not on my watch." Rachel was the first person I allowed to see how fragile I really was. Not because I was still in pieces, but because she knew how to hold them without making me feel broken. The baby's room came together faster than I expected. Rachel painted the walls soft green, pinning glow-in-the-dark stars across the ceiling. Monica dropped off books, Motherhood Isn't Scary, Your Body, Your Strength, and even one titled How to Raise a Legend that we joked would be the baby's bedtime story. I hadn't settled on a name yet. But I already knew that whoever they turned out to be, they would grow up in a home filled with honesty, softness, and power, not whispers, silence, or fear. Meanwhile, the world outside my door was unraveling for Logan. I didn't go looking for updates. But they came anyway. Mutual friends who used to sing his praises now sent quiet messages. "Hey, I heard what happened. I had no idea he was treating you like that." Or "Lindsey, if you ever want to talk. I was wrong about him. We all were. Monica forwarded me a newsletter from Logan's company. His name, once bolded in every success announcement, was conspicuously missing. Rumors floated that his demotion had become official. He was now handling regional sales, stuck under a new manager 10 years younger than him. Some said he'd been passed over for a promotion he had been grooming himself for since 2021. Others said the higher-ups were just waiting him out. One day at the grocery store, I overheard someone mention that Logan had been seen drinking alone at a bar just off 6th Street, something he swore he never did. I didn't celebrate his downfall. I didn't cheer or scream, serves you right. I just observed. Because sometimes, silence is the loudest justice of all. Then, one afternoon, as I walked home with a fresh loaf of sourdough and a carton of eggs, I saw him. Logan. Across the street, standing under a flickering streetlight, phone pressed to his ear. He looked ordinary. Not the polished golden boy everyone used to fawn over. His coat was worn, his shoes scuffed. His hair, once always immaculate, curled in messy tufts around his ears. He looked up, briefly scanning the street, and our eyes met for a half-second. He froze. I didn't. I turned and crossed the road. I wasn't scared of him. I wasn't even mad anymore. I had just moved on. Moved up. Back home, I found Rachel dancing in the kitchen to Motown, a spatula in one hand, my favorite apron tied around her waist. She was making cornbread and humming Ain't No Mountain High Enough. I laughed so hard I forgot Logan existed. "Girl, you okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "Better than I've been in a long time." That night, as the baby fluttered softly in my belly, I sat by the nursery window painting again. I hadn't painted in years, not since Logan told me it was a cute hobby, but not very useful. My brush moved slowly, tracing light across the canvas. I was painting the lake. The same lake Logan once took me to when we first fell in love. But now, I painted it with brighter skies. With calm water. With me in the frame, not behind him, not in his shadow, but standing on my own. Later, Monica stopped by for tea and updates. I told her about seeing Logan. "Did he say anything?" she asked. "No. He just looked lost." "Good," she said bluntly. "Let him sit in the silence he created." We sipped our tea and talked about baby names. Monica loved Lena. Said it sounded strong and classic. Rachel liked Noel, a nod to the chaos of Christmas that birthed this entire transformation. But I was leaning toward Lena. That night, I whispered it softly to my belly. Lena. Lena Grace. And something about it felt right. In the weeks that followed, Logan tried reaching out. Emails. Voicemails. A handwritten letter with shaky script arrived one day in my mailbox. It read, "Lindsey. I don't know who I was when I did those things. I wish I could explain. I thought I was in control, but I wasn't even in control of myself. You didn't deserve it. Any of it. I'm sorry. I wish I could take it back. If there's anything I can do. I just want to be a part of this child's life. Logan." I stared at the letter for a long time. Then folded it. Put it in a drawer. And never replied. Not out of vengeance, but peace. I didn't need to explain anything to him anymore. He'd already heard everything that mattered the night I said nothing and smiled. By late March, the cherry blossoms started blooming near the park across from my house. Rachel and I took walks each afternoon, me waddling slowly, her cracking jokes about how she was going to be the cool aunt who teaches Lena to climb fences and break curfews. We laughed. A lot. There was no more silence in this house. No more waiting for footsteps or bracing for backhanded compliments. There was just life. And it was beautiful. The day I went into labor was nothing like I expected. There was no dramatic water breaking in a fancy restaurant, no midnight dash through rain-slicked streets. It was mid-morning on a quiet Thursday. I was standing in the kitchen, humming to a jazz playlist, whisking eggs for French toast when I felt a dull, low ache. At first, I thought it was just the usual back strain I'd been getting. But then it came again, stronger, more rhythmic. I placed the whisk down gently and whispered, "Rachel?" She popped out from the laundry room, socks in hand, mid-lecture about which ones mysteriously vanish in the dryer. But her face changed the second she saw mine. "Hospital bag?" she asked. I nodded. 20 minutes later, Monica met us at the hospital, car keys still in her hand, already barking orders at the front desk nurse like a seasoned general. "It's time," she said, her voice both firm and oddly joyful. 12 hours later, under the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the comforting chaos of nurses and beeping monitors, Lena Grace came into the world. The moment they placed her on my chest, everything went quiet. It wasn't just the room. It was my soul. Her tiny body was warm against mine, her fists balled, her eyes squeezed shut. She let out the most beautiful cry I had ever heard, strong, fierce, like she was announcing herself to the world. I whispered her name over and over. "Lena, my girl, you're here." Rachel cried. Monica wiped a tear and muttered something about allergies. In that moment, I felt more whole than I ever had as a wife. More real than I ever had playing the role of someone's accessory. Lena wasn't just my child. She was the proof that I had survived. That night, as Lena slept in the bassinet beside me, wrapped in the tiniest pink blanket, I lay awake and looked out the window of the hospital room. I thought about Logan. He didn't know yet. He hadn't been informed. I hadn't placed him on the emergency contact list, nor had I updated him since the hearing. I owed him nothing. But deep inside me, there was a small, flickering urge to let him know. Not to invite him back in, but to show him what he lost. So, I picked up my phone and snapped a photo. Lena's little hand curled around my finger. Her face calm, her skin soft as the first snowfall. I sent it in an email with one simple line. She arrived safe. Her name is Lena Grace. Lindsey. I didn't expect a reply. I didn't want one. I just wanted him to see it and sit with it. The next morning, there was a new message in my inbox. "Lindsey. She's beautiful. Truly. I don't deserve to say more. But thank you for letting me know. I'll respect your space. I won't reach out again. I just wanted to say, congratulations. Logan." And just like that, the final thread between us snapped. I exhaled, closed the laptop, and turned my attention back to Lena. My real beginning. In the weeks that followed, I transformed into someone I never imagined I'd be. Not just a mother, but an architect of a life that was finally mine. My days revolved around Lena's soft coos, diaper changes, and late-night feedings that somehow felt less exhausting and more like a quiet vigil of love. Rachel stayed for a month, then returned home but checked in every evening. Monica came by with coffee and papers, trusts, custody updates, Lena's documentation. I added a clause, Monica said one afternoon, sipping her iced Americano. "If Logan ever tries to contest custody or get visitation, he'll have to prove 12 consecutive months of emotional and financial stability, with court-reviewed documentation." "Do you think he will?" I asked. "Try?" Monica snorted. "Probably. Men like him always think they're entitled to a second act. But don't worry, he won't get past me." We toasted with our coffees. By spring, I had picked up a remote design consulting job from a friend who knew I used to dabble in interiors. It started small, just mood boards and color palettes, but eventually I was pulling in decent income, all while staying home with Lena. One morning, while checking my business email, I came across a headline forwarded by a client. "Former tech director quietly let go after internal audit reveals misconduct allegations." My heart stopped. I clicked. Logan's name wasn't in the headline, but it was in the second paragraph. Sources say Logan, once considered the face of the company's rapid growth, was demoted following concerns raised by HR regarding inappropriate workplace behavior, excessive expense reports, and personal misconduct. He has since stepped down. There was a photo of him from a conference last year. In a navy suit, still looking the part. But now the caption beneath felt like an obituary to a career that once dazzled the whole city. I stared at it for a while. Then closed the tab. Logan had finally met the version of himself he couldn't charm his way past. And it wasn't me. It was consequence. And perhaps, somewhere deep down, he knew that was his true reckoning. I didn't tell Rachel or Monica. I didn't want it to become a celebratory event. Because in truth, I wasn't happy to see him fall. I was just grateful I wasn't falling with him. The first Mother's Day after Lena's birth, my sister sent me a card with a note that read, "You're not just a survivor. You're a blueprint." That stuck with me. Because it was the first time I realized my story wasn't just mine anymore. There were women out there still sleeping beside the men who made them small. Still pretending. Still smiling with teeth clenched. I wanted them to know they weren't alone. That freedom doesn't come all at once, it comes in the slow, quiet moments when you start believing your peace matters more than his ego. And Lena? She became the living reminder of what courage looks like when it chooses to grow, no matter how scarred the soil. That summer, everything began to bloom again, inside the house, inside me, inside a life I once thought was over. I planted herbs on the kitchen windowsill. Basil, rosemary, mint. I rearranged furniture, painted the nursery sunshine yellow, and filled the bookshelf with stories I used to love as a girl. My hands, once used to trembling when Logan got home late, now busied themselves with making a home that truly felt like mine. And Lena grew. God, she grew. By August, she was laughing real laughter, belly giggles that erupted like music every time I made a silly face or kissed her soft neck. Her tiny hands grabbed at my cheeks. Her eyes followed my every move like I was the center of her universe. And in a way, I was. But she was mine, too. My gravity. My reason. My proof that joy was still possible. The consulting work picked up slowly but steadily. Word got around that I had an eye. Clients loved my attention to detail, my ability to create warmth in cold spaces. Maybe because I knew what it meant to live in a cold home. I knew what warmth cost. And I wasn't going to waste a single beam of it. I started posting before and afters on social media. Within months, I had followers. Inquiries. A small waitlist. By fall, I was officially registered as Lindsey Grace Interiors. I had a logo. A website. A business card. And a future. Meanwhile, Logan had all but disappeared from public view. I heard whispers, mostly from mutual friends or LinkedIn updates. He had tried launching a startup with some college buddies, but funding fell through. One of his old colleagues said he was seen pitching to investors in Dallas and getting turned away. Another said he was consulting part-time for a company that barely paid commission. He moved out of his downtown loft and into a rental in Round Rock. He deleted most of his social media accounts. His once polished persona faded like a suit left too long in the sun, worn and unraveling. And yet, I didn't gloat. There was a time I might have wanted to. But not anymore. Because now, my energy was sacred. And Logan wasn't worth even the cost of my bitterness. One Sunday in September, I took Lena to the local park for the first time. She was 6 months old, her chubby legs kicking in her little denim overalls. I laid a blanket out under the oak tree near the lake, yes, that lake, and sat with her as the breeze rustled the leaves. It was the same lake where Logan once told me I was lucky he chose me. Now I looked at my daughter and thought, she chose me. Life chose me. While Lena babbled beside me, a woman nearby, maybe mid-40s, elegant, kind eyes, smiled and said, "She's beautiful. You're doing a great job." I don't know why that hit me so hard, but it did. "Thank you," I whispered, voice cracking a little. "I'm trying." She nodded. Sometimes, trying is the bravest thing. Later that night, after Lena had gone to sleep, I sat by the fireplace with Rachel, a glass of cider in my hand. "I think I want to tell my story," I said quietly. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean, publicly. Maybe not every detail. But something real. Something other women can see and think, if she did it, so can I." She reached over, squeezed my hand. "Then you should." The next day, I wrote a long blog post. It started with, "I was supposed to cry when he handed me divorce papers on Christmas Eve. But I didn't. Because I had already been preparing my freedom long before he realized I was gone." I detailed what it felt like to live in emotional captivity, how I reclaimed my voice, how I prepared in silence until I could walk away without looking back. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. The truth didn't need help being powerful. The post went viral within days. Women messaged me from all over, some still in their situations, others already healing, many in the process of discovering their own strength. They thanked me. They cried. They shared. And I realized, this was bigger than just my story. This was a mirror. A movement. One message stood out. "I read your post 3 times. My husband hasn't hit me, but he makes me feel like I don't matter. Your story made me realize I'm not crazy. Thank you. I needed this. I'm making a plan." I cried reading that one. Not out of sadness. But out of pride. Because the ripple had started. And I had thrown the first stone. A few weeks later, I received a thick manila envelope from Logan's attorney. Inside was a formal document. Logan had relinquished any claim to future custody of Lena, citing the best interests of the child. The accompanying note said he would no longer pursue visitation. No threats. No guilt. No bargaining. Just silence. It was over. Truly over. I sat in Lena's room that night, rocking her slowly, the document folded on the nightstand. "You're mine now," I whispered. "Only mine." And I realized that motherhood hadn't saved me. I had saved myself. Lena was the gift, the light. But the path? I carved that with my own bare hands. Lena's first birthday came with a bright sky and the kind of still air that makes you feel like the whole world is waiting for something good to happen. Rachel and Monica helped me decorate the backyard, nothing extravagant, just strings of paper stars, a pastel banner that said 1, and balloons swaying gently in the breeze. There was no Pinterest pressure, no overcomplicated theme. Just people who loved us, gathered on a patch of grass I now fully owned, celebrating a life that almost never got the chance to bloom. Lena wore a pale yellow dress that Rachel had found in a vintage boutique downtown. Her golden curls were tied back with a small ribbon, and she clapped her hands every time someone sang to her. Her laugh, her light, it filled every corner of that yard. I stood there beside her high chair, icing cake from my hands, watching as Monica lifted her up to blow out a single candle. It was everything. Then, just after lunch was served and the kids had run off toward the bubble machine, Rachel touched my elbow. "He's here," she said softly. I turned, and there he was. Logan. Standing just outside the fence. Alone. He wore a plain shirt, no tailored suit. No audience. Just a paper gift bag in one hand and the smallest expression I'd ever seen on his face. Not smug. Not confident. Just small. I walked to the gate and met him there, blocking the entrance. He didn't ask to come in. He just looked at me. "She looks happy," he said. "She is," I replied. And safe. He nodded. Then held out the gift bag. I didn't come to stay. Just thought she might want this someday. I took it. Inside was a small plush lamb. And a sealed envelope. I don't expect forgiveness, Logan said quietly. But I wanted you to know, I've started over. I'm in therapy. Got a regular job. No titles. No corner office. Just honest work. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked at him for what he truly was, a man who once built a cage around me with compliments and charm. Who underestimated me until the moment I walked out with the key to everything he thought he controlled. He blinked, as if expecting me to say something, maybe invite him in, maybe offer closure. But I didn't know him that. You don't get to be part of her life, Logan, I said, calm and steady. That's not punishment. That's consequence. He nodded once. I know. And then he turned and walked away. Just like that. No grand gesture. No final plea. Just quiet footsteps down the sidewalk, growing smaller, smaller, until he disappeared behind the corner hedge. I stood there a moment longer, then looked at the envelope he'd left. I opened it later that night. Inside was a letter, handwritten. No excuses. Just a simple acknowledgement. Lindsey. I hurt you. I didn't even realize how deeply until I saw you standing there today. I wanted control. You wanted partnership. I failed you. But I see now, you never needed me. You were always the stronger one. I hope Lena grows up to be just like you. Logan. I put the letter in a memory box I'd made for Lena. Along with the sonogram, her hospital bracelet, and a photo of me holding her the day she was born. Not because I wanted her to carry the pain. But because one day, when she's old enough, I want her to know what resilience looks like in ink and paper. In moments survived. And in women who rise. Later that evening, when the guests had gone and the stars blinked awake above us, Rachel and Monica sat with me on the porch. You good? Rachel asked. I looked at Lena asleep inside, hand curled around her stuffed lamb, chest rising and falling in that perfect baby rhythm. Yeah, I said. I really am. We toasted, just the three of us, with sparkling apple cider. To Lena, Monica said, raising her glass. To freedom, Rachel added. And me? I looked at the light inside the house, the warmth that had taken me years to build. To never shrinking again, I said. Because that was the ultimate victory. Not the house. Not the money. Not even Logan's downfall. But the quiet, ordinary, extraordinary power of living without fear. Of walking into every room, whether alone or with a child on your hip, with your chin up and your spine straight. Of knowing your love is not a currency to be exploited, but a crown to be earned. I used to think my story ended when Logan served me divorce papers on Christmas Eve. But that wasn't the ending. It was the spark. And the fire? It still burns. Lindsey's story reminds us, true power isn't found in revenge, it's found in the choice to rise, to rebuild, and to love yourself without apology. You never know how strong you are until being strong is your only choice. If this story touched you, share it. Tell us in the comments, have you ever been underestimated only to rise stronger than anyone expected? And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Echoes, where stories speak louder than revenge.